In this presentation, I'll be talking about three different initiatives within sport, which is Sportivate, Project 500 and the school sport games. So obviously the sport that he wants to participate in is quite unique, and because of this you'll probably have to travel to get to facilities such as Hove Lagoon in order to have the access to specific staff and equipment needed for the activity. All of that's going to cost a lot of money, which may be an issue for John coming from a lower socio-economic background. And due to the fact that it's a water sport, it may not appeal to everyone in the winter time, as it would be very cold being in the water. There's also ways of adapting this sport to cater for those with different forms of disability, but this would mean that specialised equipment and staffing would be needed, which again would cost more money. John's at kind of quite a sensitive age, I suppose, where people may not feel comfortable within themselves, and so wearing a wetsuit in front of other people may not appeal to everyone, make them feel quite self-conscious and deter them from wanting to take part in the sport. And also because of his age, there's a likelihood that his parents or guardian would need quite a high level of involvement with taking part in the sport, such as parental supervision and potentially helping him to get to the place he needs to be. So Sportivate could help in a different number of ways. So Sportivate is a allotted funder initiative that aims to increase mass participation by targeting kind of the semi and non-sporty audience of 14 to 25 year olds, as that's typically the age range when people become uninvolved in sports for whatever reason. In 2013 they changed it to incorporate 11 to 13 year olds too. It was set up and launched in 2011 and built upon the 2012 Olympic legacy, and there's currently around 600,000 people within England taking part in the schemes and programmes set up by Sportivate. So these programmes typically run from about 6 to 8 weeks for around 1 to 2 hours of activity per week, and they're commonly run at subsidised or even free costs in order to allow as many people as possible to take part. So it's also inclusive of people with disabilities and from ethnic minorities. A lot of the time after a Sportivate programme has ended, the people who have run the programme will often apply for additional funding, which they can get up to £30 per person, which might go towards something such as a gym membership for that individual to allow them to keep taking part in sport for as long as possible. So specifically, Sportivate could help John by setting up an 8-week free or subsidised wakeboarding and water sports programme at facilities such as Hove Lagoon, where all of the necessary equipment is already present, as well as there already being fully qualified staff there. However, due to the fact that it isn't necessarily a well-advertised activity and not many people are aware of it, it may be a bit beneficial that they have posters and information available at the school, as well as possibly having a water sports instructor go to the school to promote and advertise it. Once the interest is there, then there may be an issue of some people physically getting to Hove Lagoon, and so Sportivate would be able to fund and accommodate travel to the facility. For example, they might book a minibus that picks them up from the school and takes them to and from Hove Lagoon. And it also might be wise to do this in the summer holiday, as the weather would be better and therefore it may attract more people. And also it gives young people something to do during the summer holidays if they can't afford to go away, which might prevent people from feeling excluded from having good experiences through the summer holidays regardless of their financial situation. However, due to the fact that this particular programme may require relatively large amounts of funding per person, it's likely that there'll only be limited spaces on the programme. So obviously here's some of the benefits and negative points of view from Sportivate. So obviously it's there to increase mass participation and lets people try something new. And often people try something new at these Sportivate programmes and then they want to carry on something along those lines, or at least sport in general. So it acts as a gateway. Obviously provides financial support for people who might not have a chance to do these things otherwise. And obviously by getting people into sport, it's going to improve health. It allows people to make friends with people with similar interests, targets inactive people, and obviously it's running for quite a long time, 8 to 10 weeks. A lot of thought has gone into the designing of these programmes, so they're fit for purpose and are usually made to cater for the majority. And there's the option for the additional funding. However, obviously you can't really please everyone, and some sports won't appeal to kind of everyone and sometimes both genders. Obviously there's a chance you might not be able to secure funding because there's so many different people trying to get it, and then obviously that will lead to rejected applications. Obviously it's only aimed at a target audience, so people who are maybe more sporty might feel a bit left out, that people who wouldn't typically get involved are getting more opportunity than them. Obviously limited number of space, and if someone's had a negative experience at school or something, like when they think of sport they might think of doing cross country in the cold, and that might deter them from wanting to try again. And there's the issue of a lot of people not completing the post activity survey, so they don't really know the areas that they can and can't improve on to make it a better experience. Moving on to scenario 2. So obviously Louisa's talents are not being recognised, and she's more or less being brushed off just because of her gender. Obviously she's shown a lot of interest to coach, and her male teacher is denying her the opportunity, and it's instead passing these opportunities onto the boys who he may deem more capable for the role, despite this not necessarily being the case. So because of that, Louise might lose confidence in herself, as she's got no one there to encourage her. And similarly, she might not have a female coaching role model to look up to. And so because she's pretty much being told that coaching is just for boys, she may start to believe that and then lose interest in wanting to coach altogether. Additionally, she isn't necessarily receiving the respect she should from her teacher, so other people in her class might pick up on that and kind of replicate that behaviour, which is obviously going to get to her eventually. And then so say in lessons, if she was actually given the opportunity to do something, say she were to like make a wrong call or just do something that other people might not be a fan of, they're going to blow that way out of proportion, whereas opposed to if a boy done that same action, they might not get as such a reaction from everyone else. So Project 500 is a campaign involving 7 county sports partnerships in the south that addresses the imbalance between male and female coaches. It does this by supporting and encouraging girls and women of any age to get involved with coaching. So it offers things such as subsidised workshops and access to coaching courses. It's also set up local and regional ambassador events where groups of people can come together to educate each other on good practice and promote the cause together. So due to the large amounts of support Project 500 has received, it's now being able to convert into a national project, which means it can reach out to even more people. So specifically, Project 500 would be able to help Louise in giving her access to more coaching qualifications, such as a sports leaders or her level 1 coaching award in football, and that would be at subsidised prices, making it easier for her to obtain more qualifications and training, which obviously it would kind of prove to people that she has the knowledge and the ability to do this, and so they would have to give her that opportunity in lessons. In addition to this, Project 500 could also send ambassadors into her school to promote women's coaching, which in turn could lead to female coaches within her school being respected more, as well as giving some girls a role model to look up to. And so not only would this mean that her peers are getting some education, but it might also raise awareness to her teachers to kind of prove to them that girls are there for a reason and that they can actually do some good and help them out. So Project 500 has received 3 national awards, and it's introduced 560 new female coaches, and obviously they keep on tracking and monitoring those 560 coaches to ensure that they're carrying on and they're making a difference. So yeah, it's promoting equality and it's empowering females in like male environments, and it's creating those female role models, which will of course increase mass participation. And they've also had some involvement in This Girl Can project to obviously improve how girls are treated in sport and show that they can do just as much as the boys can. But obviously it can put off people altogether. Like they might not, they might kind of feel mocked or something, I don't know. Obviously there is still an imbalance within the place, so it's had an impact, but maybe not as big as people would have thought, and so they might not feel like it's going to work and wouldn't want to participate themselves. And obviously certain male-dominated kind of sports, there is a perception that it is strictly for males, and for some people it's really hard to change that mindset. And so in some situations, like there's only so much you can do really. And obviously Asian and cultural barriers do exist where women aren't really able to go against the grain and do what they want to do in their sport. So scenario 3. So due to Sarah's mobility impairment, it means there's a lot that in order for her to take part in a sport, she will need specialised equipment and facilities. On top of this, she'll also need specialised supervision. So any staff will need additional training to enable her, so they can both manage her mobility impairment, as well as also having the correct sporting knowledge in order to allow her to partake in certain specialised sports. All of these things are going to cost money and resources that a school may or may not have access to. As a current school cannot facilitate a form of disability netball, then she may need to travel in order to find a place that does, which would again require added money for transportation, which they might not have. And obviously a failure to allow Sarah to get involved within sports despite her obvious interest may cause her confidence levels to drop and leave her feeling left out or even discriminated against. So the school sports games is a fully inclusive competition for school children in England, led by a combination of teaching and active Sussex staff, and it's said to have increased the quality of school sport competition. So there's 4 levels to it: intra-school, which is competitions within a school wholly aimed at increasing mass participation; inter-school, so that's between different schools, individuals and teams are chosen by the school to represent them; county, which is usually held twice a year in order to find the best performers in the area; and national school games, where the most talented young people in the UK are selected to compete in high performance venues. So specifically for this scenario, in order to help Sarah out, the school could alter the sports they take part in during the intra-school competition. So as opposed to just doing typical football, netball, rugby, the typical kind of sports and individual things, they could include sports such as bocce and wheelchair sports, because this can incorporate both able-bodied and disabled students rather than discriminating between the two. Alternatively, they could arrange competitions strictly for those with disabilities, because obviously she wants to play netball, but there may not be many wheelchair netball teams around, but obviously wheelchair basketball is kind of slightly more publicised, and the skills between the two are quite transferable, so you might be able to found a wheelchair basketball club or even a competition. So they may also choose to have more staff trained in order to assist her, in which case she would be able to potentially join in with the netball team within intra-school competitions with some rule changes that enable her to take part. So obviously, benefits of this of school games is that you don't have to go with the traditional activities and games. You can kind of mix up a bit to allow everyone to feel included. And obviously there's volunteering opportunities wherever you go, such as the school games, which kind of gives you a different role than sports. If you're not physically able to take part in a certain thing, there's nothing there to stop you from umpiring or officiating in one way or another. So obviously the negative side of it is that only elite sports people can take part in the 3rd and 4th level, so the county and national, which might leave some people feeling a bit left out and maybe that they're not good enough, and might cause their confidence levels to drop. Obviously it's a competitive event, and some people don't like that competitive side, so it might deter them from wanting to join in altogether. And as much as it's good to enjoy a bit of competition between people, it's good to consider people's health and well-being as well, because that's the main goal you're aiming for by taking part in sport.